to Minute Mirror Exclusive. This is Zain Khan. Assalamu alaikum to all the viewers who are watching us in Ramadan. Today we will be interviewing a prominent Islamic scholar on the topic of blessings of Ramadan. Today we will be interviewing Dr. Bilal Philips, who is the chancellor of International Open University. Welcome to our show, Dr. Bilal Philips. It's such a pleasure having you, sir.
A pleasure to be with you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sir, let's get to the first question. Since Ramazan is here, can you provide an overview of the significance of Ramadan in Islam and its spiritual importance for Muslims globally?
Ramadan Mubarak to yourself and to all the listeners, viewers, etc. In terms of the significance of Ramadan in Islam, it's one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It's an obligation on all Muslims who are able. And if they're not able, there are compensations which they are required to do. But in terms of the goals of the fast, what is it that Allah wants us to get from the fast, to achieve through fasting? I could sum them up in basically 9 principles. 1, the long-term goal, which would be Jannah. When the Prophet ﷺ was asked about doing something, one of the companions asked him to do something which would put him in paradise. The Prophet ﷺ told him, fast. The second is taqwa. This is an immediate goal. And Allah describes that, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, in Surah Al-Baqarah, that in order that you would develop taqwa, which is consciousness of God. And through fasting, one becomes more conscious of God because there are rules, etc., governing the fast and practices in the fast which help to increase our awareness of God, Allah. The third is that of gratitude, that fasting engenders in the person, the human being, a sense of gratitude. They should understand it and be grateful to Allah for fasting because it helps to make us better people. And so we should be grateful to Allah for it. Also, Prophet ﷺ had said, whoever fasts Ramadan with proper faith and seeking his or her reward from Allah. As a 4th point, forgiveness. That Allah would forgive them for their previous sins. Fasting on other occasions, Prophet ﷺ described it as a shield for young people who he encouraged to get married. That if they can't get married, then they should shield themselves from sinful things by fasting. Furthermore, fasting should bring out in the individual a sense of empathy and sympathy for those who don't have, who are fasting not because they chose to fast, but because they had nothing to eat. So it should make us more sympathetic and have empathy for those who are in such situations. Furthermore, fasting also should help us in terms of our diets. Where there's a trend towards obesity in the world today, the numbers of obese people are many, many, many times over what it was 50 years ago or 100 years ago. So where we have this excess, to be excessive in our eating habits, etc. And if it's in our eating habits, it's going to, overflow into other habits. So instead of being gluttonous and eating anything and everything that we can, we should be charitable and sharing our food with others. And there are great rewards for those who help others to fast and to break their fast, etc., to provide the iftar for them. And rewards have been assigned for such acts. Also, in the fasting of Ramadan, we won't say fasting in general, but at least in the fast of Ramadan, we're encouraged to read the Quran. We're encouraged to read the Quran because this is, as Allah described it, Hudan lil Muttaqeen. It's guidance for those who fear Allah. So this is among the things which Ramadan, fasting in Ramadan in particular, encourages developing that contact with the Quran, which is the ultimate source of guidance. Ramadan encourages late night prayers, and the Prophet ﷺ had described the best prayer after the obligatory prayer is the night prayer, tahajjud. So it encourages us to be engaged in night prayer when throughout the rest of the year we are likely not engaged in it. And it's rare that people may do it. It's only a very small minority who are praised by Allah in the Quran. So we should take benefit from the opportunity to pray at night and making Taraweeh really later on in the night, after midnight, etc., as opposed to immediately after Isha, which is what people do everywhere. But really, the preferable prayer is one which is later on in the night. Maybe in some places they call it Qiyam, other names, etc. Distinguishing it from Taraweeh. But in fact, Qiyam and Taraweeh are one and the same. The best time is after midnight. And that we could make that the summary of the main points that we could suggest are among the goals or the essence of fasting, especially the fast of Ramadan.
Dr. Bilal Philips, if non-Muslims are watching us right now and they would like to understand Ramadan, could you explain the key rituals and practices observed during Ramzan and how do they contribute to spiritual growth and self-discipline?
To explain to a non-Muslim, it's good to focus on the psychological, spiritual benefits that come from fasting in Ramadan. And perhaps among the most notable benefits is that it helps to give a structure to our lives in times when we normally don't have any structure. In the early morning and the night, usually we have the structure during the daytime. Early morning and night, it's not usually structured. But through fasting, we become more conscious of the early morning prayer, which is one which is difficult for most people, and the late night prayer, again, people may tend towards just going to sleep instead of praying the late night prayer as a part of the 5 daily prayers which are obligatory on Muslims. So I would go into more detail in terms of the benefits of prayers at these times. I would try to explain that to non-Muslims who would be curious about the benefits of fasting.
Sir, could you shed light on the role of community and charity during Ramadan, and how do these aspects enhance the experience of this holy month?
Well, the role of community, because of the fact that the night prayers are done together, the early morning prayers, Fajr, should be done together. It would be much easier when one is fasting. These are two major times which help to bring community together during the month of fasting, which would not be the norm outside of that month. So you'll find masjids will fill up early morning for Fajr prayer and for the late night for Isha, the late night prayer, would fill up in a way you will not see around the rest of the year except in Ramadan. So it's a good encouragement, but of course it needs to be built on. You know, that those times when people get together, there should be efforts on the part of the religious leaders of the community to bring out those points, you know, of community activity and community concern during the month. Ramadan is known as the month of charity because it's highly recommended to do charitable acts during this month. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad is described as being most charitable during Ramadan. So we're encouraged to follow his example. So we can understand the need of the needy through fasting. If we fast as we were meant to fast, meaning that we're supposed to be fasting and not feasting, where suhoor, you know, becomes a 3-course meal, and iftar becomes a 6-course meal, and people gain weight in Ramadan. People proudly would say that. And of course, non-Muslims will be shocked. How? You just fasted for 30 days and you gained weight? How is that possible? And of course, it's only possible when, you know, people are not following the principles of fasting. The Prophet Muhammad had encouraged us to just take few dates, 3, 5 dates, and some water or some other liquid, and that's suhoor. Suhoor is not supposed to be chicken and rice and it's not to say these things are haram. They're not haram, but it's not the spirit of fasting. And when you eat that much, your system is still digesting the food throughout the day, and you don't finish your digestive process until just before Maghrib. And then you go again and stuff in even more. So this cultural practice of overeating in suhoor and overeating in iftar, you know, this leads to the obesity that is the common feature of modern civilization. You know, go back 100 years, obesity was limited to a very small sector of the society. Whereas today, you know, XXL garments are a norm, common. So Ramadan encourages us to get away from that, because overeating and being wasteful, because of course with all these foods that are coming at you, you can't eat all of them, so you eat a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of the other, and so much is wasted. Ramadan encourages us to have moderation. Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, had stressed the importance of the wasat. We're supposed to be ummatan wasata, that moderate nation, not going to one extreme or the other.
In your opinion, in what ways does Ramadan serve as a time for reflection, repentance, and seeking forgiveness for all of Muslims?
In terms of reflection, of course, we're encouraged to read the Quran during Ramadan. Allah describes Ramadan as being the month in which Quran was revealed. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. So the stress on trying to read the Quran, the Prophet ﷺ needs to recite the whole of the Quran, reciting twice. Last Ramadan of his life, and this was his practice. And so we're encouraged to read as much Quran as we days. We divide up the Quran according to what we're able to handle and try to get through the reading, of course, with reflection. Because if all we can read and reflect on is Surah Al-Baqarah, then that's better. Just focus on Surah Al-Baqarah, read it with reflection, with a tafsir nearby when you come across things which are unclear, rather than try to rush your way through the whole Quran. Yes, you have recited the Arabic, you haven't understood most of it, even if you're an Arab, and you feel, okay, I did my duty to the Quran, but did you really?
Sir, I want to get to the last question. What advice do you have for non-Muslims seeking to understand and support their Muslim friends and colleagues during Ramadan around the world?
Well, I would say that for non-Muslims to understand fasting, the best thing is to fast. Fast with us. It doesn't make you a Muslim, so we're not going to say after you fasted the month of Ramadan with us, khalas, you're now Muslim. Do everything else that we do. No, it's enough for them to do and let them do it the proper way and iftar properly without going to extremes, and let them experience that fast, the physical, which leads to spiritual reflection, etc. And this is something that I had implemented in Qatar, in one of the big malls. We had a campaign for encouraging non-Muslims to fast the month of Ramadan and to break fast with us. And then at the time of breaking fast, we would ask them to share their experiences and that, and it's very enlightening. People spoke, very warm and encouraging words for Muslims to continue their fast, as well as for other non-Muslims to consider fast. So, because no doubt, fasting is a source of reflection, time, consciousness of God, worship, even within oneself, if one is not following any formal religion. But there's so much that can be gotten from fasting in a systematic way. So much benefit that remains for people to take goodness from. And one of the points that I would mention in terms of fasting is that, many of us are caught up into stressful circumstances and situations, where people fall into states in which they become self-destructive, and they feel themselves to be losing control of their lives, spiraling downwards. Fasting will help to stabilize such people, ourselves, if we have these kind of experiences. Because when you fast, you take control of your life, because you now set time for fasting in the morning, the meal, etc., keeping it simple, etc., during the day, controlling things, breaking your fast in the proper way, etc. That giving oneself a sense of control is very important, because the rate of suicide around the world is mostly from depression. People becoming depressed to such a state that they end up taking their own lives. So fasting is a very good means for bringing one back down to earth, and stabilizing their feet and themselves, rather than falling down, rolling into states of extreme depression. And so there stands and remains a huge benefit to society, to individuals, to communities, to families in fasting. So we should strive our best to fast in this month of Ramadan, and to fast not only in Ramadan, because the Prophet ﷺ also encouraged us that after Ramadan, to fast in Shawwal. And then after Shawwal, that's the 10 days in Shawwal. But then after Shawwal, or even towards the remainder of Shawwal that you didn't fast in, so to fast Mondays and Thursdays in every week. So it's a part of life. It's a way of life. Fasting is a way of living.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bilal Philips, for being on Minute Mirror exclusive. It was a pleasure having you.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and we hope that it was beneficial for those who viewed it.
This was Dr. Bilal Philips, a prominent Islamic scholar and also the chancellor of International Open University based in Qatar. We were discussing the blessed month of Ramadan and its blessings. Until the next episode of Minute Mirror exclusive, this is Zain Khan. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.